Welcome to the Natural Genius podcast. We're here to help you tap into your natural genius. Let's go. There's so much to love about Chris from California, originally from Britain. He was a very charming and dear friend to see every day when we were at network school together last year. He's got a massive CV. He's been very successful in business and in real estate. He turned up to network school with an openness to learn about new initiatives and tech. I just found that so inspiring. To be like that in later years of life is impressive. To have that openness and that sweetness and excitement around others' lives. Enjoy hearing from Chris. Chris, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the Natural Genius podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. And it's strange not to have seen you or talked with you for so long that it's absolutely wonderful to renew the acquaintance.
Chris, how lovely it was to hug each other first thing in the morning when some of us had just rolled out of bed and others had just gone to fitness, and we met at the buffet breakfast at network school, and that sense of familiarity and family that we created by being together, and the long, lovely conversations that we had. And I was actually saying to somebody this morning that I want to get into later in the conversation, the poetry workshop that you ran, and how it led to people saying their poem in their native language, but not
Yes.
necessarily leading out with English, and how you managed to create that. And this view of tech bros is often not very attractive, but the people that we met in this tech bro land was so many big-hearted people. And as we were talking before, it started at the breakfast table for me, those morning hugs.
Yeah. And the breakfast meetings were absolutely wonderful, although I think what you sort of wind up bringing up in that is really in that cadre of people we met there were a lot of really beautiful people, right? There were kind people, there were generous people, there were gracious people. There was nobody who was actually rude or difficult, right? I mean, maybe there were a couple of people who were careless, whatever. But we weren't perfect, but it was really a good atmosphere. And for me, coming in as the oldest person in the room and sort of acing out a couple of you middle-aged people who thought you were old, it was like I had a bit of fun with that, obviously. But yeah, I think what should I say? It was, to me, the good thing about it, it was the antidote for the bad news about the world, okay? Because there were a lot of people there trying to do something good. Now, maybe what they're doing isn't good. Maybe it's a dead end. Maybe it's not. No, but it doesn't matter. They were all focused on trying to do something worthwhile. And some of it you could see, remembering your own youth, how you sort of saw something as being really amazing that really wasn't. We can make jokes about that, right? But it didn't matter. It was good. And so the breakfast stuff was lovely. And you and I talked there about intentionality. And it was like, for me, a big part of it, it was good to turn up without intention. So you would hear a lot about other people and their intentions. And you even got a sense with quite a few people that they were speaking for how they saw themselves in the world or where they fit. Okay, that turned up a bit in the poetry thing. I mean, I was staggered, particularly by one person with a very, very intense poem. And you thought, oh my gosh, this person is... They seemed a bit severe when you met them in the hall, right? But then you're saying, wow, this is somebody with some real
Depth.
Yeah, right. there were other people who were rather enigmatic, right? So yeah, all kinds of things like that were wonderful, right?
Oh, well said. And to give context about the poetry session, let's jump into that. So, this was towards the end of your month there, Chris. I remember you going through sort of moments of going, oh, I must put this poetry session on. And as we arrive at Network School, the invitation is there to run workshops on anything that you're interested in, any topic. And this poetry session you put on, and you attracted quite the crowd of people, largely, I think largely men from what I remember. And you started out, I think, with a poem of your own, and then people started doing their poems, and they had to declare if it was ChatGPT or another agent had helped them out. Then it came out from the group that people should do their poem in their first language. And it created such incredible depth of conversation and vulnerability and atmosphere. It was absolutely profound. I was so moved by it.
Well, thank you for saying that. And it's fun. I mean, I thought it was lovely. I'm not sure I would have expressed it quite as powerfully as you have there, but I did think for a couple of people, because obviously I do remember that a couple of people said they were just there to listen. They didn't want to express themselves, right? But in the end, I think absolutely everybody did. Sort of surprised me. The couple of people who you thought were going to be too shy or too constrained did actually get up. So that was interesting to me. And I think it is a sort of liberating form. At least I've had that told to me that way. I haven't felt that necessarily for myself, but I suppose it is somewhat, so it's
there's the form, Chris, that we could spend time talking about, and there's also the sweetness that came from people encouraging others to speak in their first language, and the pleasure, even not understanding certain languages, to hear people emote in their first language, and then to say it in English, and then to give even more, flesh out a bit more as to what was missing in English. It felt fascinating. It felt really just so beautiful, the way that cross-culturally people were sharing themselves, and you created that.
Well, thank you. I mean, I sort of wish I'd maybe done it earlier, where we could have done it, because we just did it once, right? But that's how
I think it's one of those workshops that will have stayed with people, Chris. I think it didn't matter when it was.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we're almost up on a year now. I mean, April was when we were there last year, right? And you asked about sort of my motivation in going at all, okay? And so, yeah, it was about curiosity, but as much as anything, it was about reinvention. Okay, I mean, I have felt a need to, what should we say, create new energy, new vision of how I move forward in life, right? So I've been looking for that. So I got a little bit of an impetus there, and then, funnily enough, so here's what I think about intentionality. Okay, so while I was there, one of the Ukrainian lads there invited me to go to the GitX, a big tech conference. Okay, and then he also wanted me to go to a meeting with an organization that was called, I'm going to say it's called Venture, but it had the vowels taken out of it, VNTR. Okay. So I did, and it was a very interesting conference. And I went to the VNTR meeting, and that was basically an opportunity for people who were founders and investors to get together. Okay. I didn't feel powerfully moved by it, but it was sort of okay. And so I went to a couple more since I've been back in San Francisco. And increasingly, I wasn't feeling positive about them. I don't want to criticize it, but it wasn't working for me. Let's just put it that way very well. But then here in San Francisco in January, you have the JP Morgan Healthcare Week. Okay. So the VNTR guys had arranged a joint meeting with another organization called Building Legendary Professionals in Healthcare or something like that. Okay. So I went to this other meeting at a very nice club, and this other thing was, it just hit a chord for me. Their notion is ask somebody if you can help them and then repeat. Okay. It was just, it's like not about pitching deals so much as are there connections that you have in that field where you can connect and help somebody in some way that you don't even realize at this point. So so there we go. So that has got me launched on my new path, because I wanted in the area, I've been involved in this biopharma stuff, and I don't know, I'm not well connected in that. Okay. And so this, I thought, okay, this is good. I'm going to get myself more connected into that and be more useful in that. I could have had a whole strategy of here's how I'm going to do it, and I maybe wouldn't have happened. So sometimes you've got to let things come to you, right? And sometimes it's unpredictable, right? But interesting.
You gave me goosebumps, actually, because you talked to that through the turn of events in the last year. You've opened up how you can have bigger ripple effects, perhaps, by being able to introduce people and connect people, and also fill in more learning for yourself around biopharmaceuticals or biohealth. And I think that's amazing that you were looking for inspiration or a different way of contributing in a work capacity.
You never fully know, right? I mean, but on the other hand, one thing that always made an impression on me was there was a dean of the business school I went to, okay? His name was Ernie Arbuckle, okay? And Ernie had this notion, he said, and he'd done it in his career. Every 7 years, literally, he changed his career, okay? And that was what he referred to as being reinvention. He said, this is just like we're all plants in a pot, right? And the plant grows and thrives for a while, but then after a while, you have to rip it out by the roots, chop it all up and start it all over again, right? That's you've got to do that every once in a while, or you become completely
pot bound.
Yeah, become pot bound, exactly.
Sorry, that's for the gardeners out there.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's sort of a good analogy, right? It's like, because it's not like you have to kill the plant and have a new one, right? It is about reviving, fertilizing, breaking up the roots, getting different inputs, maybe moving it to a bigger pot, putting it in a different place. All those things are what we have to do with ourselves. We don't have to do them, is the truth, right? But
every 7 years we don't have to, but that's an interesting model that he had.
Yeah. Well, that I think probably related back to the movies from the, God, you're too young to know about that. There's a great movie called The 7-Year Itch. You've never heard of The 7-Year Itch?
I have heard of it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I've seen it though, Chris. Perhaps I should put it on my watch list.
It's a wonderful movie with Marilyn Monroe. And I forget who else. I forget the male.
Not the point.
Yeah, well,
she stole that show, didn't she?
Yeah.
Or led that show at least.
Yeah.
So, keep telling me. So 7-year itch, you think that it was an ode, Ernie's ode back to the 7-year itch, was it?
Well, I mean, obviously that's just a marker, isn't it? It doesn't matter. It could be. I mean, you learn a lot in your life. I mean, you have great skills at building organizations, being chief of staff, right? So it's like, okay, you can't just say, oh, I'm now going to go and be an artist doing this and forget about all that, because you've got that skill and that ability, right? But on the other hand, you do need to have some new inspiration. You can't just be doing, well, it's like, I mean, you could just be doing exactly what you did before. And maybe for different people that works for different periods of time, but the world does change around us very dramatically, and we change and need to, it makes sense to me that you have to go through those things.
And Chris, I want to talk a little bit about how impressive you were in the gym. at network school. Now you were recovering from an injury and an accident, I think it was, but yet do you still run? You hike a lot. Tell me what you love about running and hiking and your history, if you feel
Well, I'm
like it.
still getting out and hiking, right? I can't say I'm running. I had a meeting with a pal this morning, and he keeps all the statistics, which I think is a mistake. So he was saying, "Oh, I went and did this hike this morning I hadn't done for 5 years, and I thought I was doing well, so I looked at what my time was doing it 5 years ago." You know what I mean? It's like, well, okay, why punish yourself like that, right? So, um, I mean, I can't. I used to be able to run whatever 3 miles or 5 miles, and not fast but pretty decent. I can't do sustained running now. I am doing intervals. I'm hoping to get back to where I can do a bit more distance, but now I'm mainly more hiking, walking than running.
And is there beautiful trails like that keep calling you back, Chris? Do you love
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
trails around you there?
Yeah, the trails are beautiful. We've got there's a local mountain, Mount Tamalpais, and a big part of it's the property of the water district, because they collect the water for the use in the district. And so there's a couple of beautiful reservoirs, and they have good, beautiful tree cover in parts and open parts with meadows, and there's lots of birds. And sometimes, like one day we were up there hiking, and we came across a pack of coyotes, like 5 or 6 of them. Kind of scary, actually, but a lot of times you'll see like a single animal. But one time we actually came across a of them meeting up. And they were howling at each other, and then they sort of wandered off. But it's always beautiful, just beautiful. Right.
Chris, one time when I spent a bit of time in the south or southeast of Victoria, which is southeast in Australia, and I oftentimes going to the same property would hear the wild dogs. And I never saw the wild dogs. And then one time I was in my car driving north and I saw the wild dogs and they looked wild. And then another time I was driving through the high plains or the sort of, we call them mountains here, but they're not mountains compared to other places in the world.
Yeah.
And I saw the brumbies, the wild horses. And those moments, like with the coyotes, they're just, I think I saw a cougar out of the corner of my eyes when I was in Canada one time. But those moments with wild animals, they're so magical.
Yeah. And I actually, I just had a wonderful trip to India with my granddaughter and her guardian, okay? And we went to an area of India where the Abali Mountains, which are up in Rajasthan, where they have leopards. And so we got wonderful leopard viewing with 2 different mothers. One had 3 cubs and the other had 2 cubs. And the cubs were playing around. They climb up in the trees, they flop down, fall off, catch up on another branch, all this kind of stuff. And it's just fantastic to watch these beautiful creatures, doing this stuff.
So yeah. Chris, how lucky we are. And tell me, if we talk about business for a moment there, Chris, you've been successful in many ways in business and in real estate. What do you find yourself passing on to people these days? What are the things that make such a difference that you might be passing on regularly to people?
Wow. I've had a couple of young guys who I'm sort of, I don't like the term mentoring, but I'm mentoring. Okay? So it sort of depends where they're at, doesn't it? I've got one young guy who, Hispanic young man, and he's really, I think he's smart. He doesn't have strong, sort of education in terms of business law, what have you, but he's really, good. And he's interested in real estate. And so I've been what I've been encouraging him is because you just get a lot of turned. I mean, that's the worst thing, right? In business, you get rejected a lot, right? So it's mainly about, okay, you got to keep going. You can't take no. Okay. And instead of responding on the internet, it's good to go to somebody's office and put your head in, even if they tell you, no, you can't have an appointment with anybody. The fact that you've gone in and done something, sometimes it gets you somewhere. So this young man has actually got a couple of interviews that have come out of doing that. And I think it's different than just, being on internet stuff, right? So a lot to me is just, I don't think it's about really, it's not about trying to teach people. It's just encouraging them to keep doing things, right? Because they're going to do it differently than you do it. And they have to find their own métier somehow, right? And of course, there's a couple of things you can say. Like you certainly say, well, okay, there's a lot of luck, right? And certainly, hey, it's helpful to go improve your skills. You can say stuff like that. But in terms of getting really specific, one of the big things, though, I'm into right now is saying to people, hey, don't be homogenized and pastoral. I mean, they all look at the stuff on you're supposed to use these hand gestures. No. You've got to figure out who you are and how you present yourself. Okay, so I've got a great story about that I do tell young kids. Okay, it's like, okay, when I was early on in my career working for a real estate investment trust advisory company, I went on a trip to Washington D.C. to meet with some people, do some business. Okay, suit, tie, the whole thing, right? Stay in the fancy hotel. I forgot to take dress shoes, so I turned up at my meetings in my tennis shoes, my trainers, right? Well, I mean, kind of a bit embarrassing, but actually, of course, everybody who I dealt with back there remembered me because I was the person who turned up in the fancy suit and had bloody tennis shoes, right? Well,
differentiating yourself without meaning to.
Yeah, right. So that's, I think, so that's the whole point. You don't have to be, it just got to be
You've got to be you.
Don't you think?
Well, I wouldn't be running a podcast called Natural Genius if I didn't agree with that, Chris.
Oh, okay. So here you are, Madam Chief of Staff. I never had a Chief of Staff.
Didn't you? I would have loved being your Chief of Staff there, Chris.
I think I would have resisted you horribly. You wouldn't have wanted, because I think I did once have a really good personal assistant who wanted to screen my calls and know what I was doing and where I was going and who she was fantastic, right? But I realized I bridled against that sort of having somebody organize my life, right? And I think a good chief of staff, you do have to organize that life, right?
I think, well, if I can interject, the chief of staff roles that I've played have been a I like to look for where the gap is and where the value can be. So how does a business grow? By filling the gaps or filling what I sense into around what it needs. And when you were talking about differentiation before, it was reminding me of, I've never called myself a marketer, but I've done growth activities. And sometimes they have been walking into an office rather than doing stuff online, or thinking about a special package to deliver somebody senior that's like so amazing that they want to take a meeting. So thinking broadly around how to actually grow a business. And so as a chief of staff, it's this beautiful combination of what you experienced of me at network school, where it was building culture and building community and having people listened to and heard and felt loved, and sensing into the activities that the business needs to do and doing strategy and tactics. So sometimes it's projects, sometimes it's supporting leaders like yourself to get their flights organised. It depends on the size of the business it is, but they have always been really fascinating and interesting and diverse roles for me, where I can jump in and do all kinds of things.
Yeah, I have to imagine. I mean, I don't know. I can really imagine how you navigate that role, because you have to be working with people who have significant, let's say they have significant egos, be polite about it, right? And
I've worked in management consulting for a lot of years. So yes, Chris.
yes, right. Right. And so you're there, I mean, because obviously you are also somebody who has intelligence, you have experience, you have ideas, you have really, you've got network, you've got all those things. And sometimes that I would think there have to be really strong disagreements with the person for whom you're chief of staff, right? And you've got to, even if you've got, typically a positive relationship, there would be times now when that.
And at the end of the day, sometimes we had a podcast recording recently with Corinne, who's this beautiful woman who's working now. She did a lot of work in social impact around finance, and now she's working in land restoration and doing amazing things in nature and with a whole group of interesting people. And she was reiterating that an idea has its time, and sometimes it's not meant to come to be. So as you're talking just now, I'm thinking of a number of moments where strategically, and the start of the pandemic was one of those, I was working with a startup and I was trying to encourage the senior leaders to change a face-to-face big rollout, big sales conference across India and Asia. I was trying to change their minds about changing it to to online rather than face-to-face. And I couldn't win that argument. And then in weeks to come, we ended up by changing it to online, which is not to say I was right, they were wrong. It was actually just people needed to come to it in their own time. And as a chief of staff or as a support through a business, whatever the role is called, there is that moment of having to put your case forward, do it as best as you can, do stakeholder management and explain to people in different forums if needed, and catch them for a coffee or send them more information, those sorts of encouragements. But at the end of the day, sometimes an idea comes and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. And I think the same is true, by the way, with investment opportunities. There's the time, and the timing thing is impossible to time, and yet timing is important. Yeah, there's so many mysteries in life. No, it's really good conversation, right? I mean,
well, and also, Chris, the wonderful thing about your and my discussions, as we know well from the breakfast table at Network School, they're far and wide ranging. And part of the impetus for this podcast is many initiatives that I've done through my career, and many moments I've had in life where I've had so many great conversations and walked away going, I wish they were recorded. And then also a number of elders that I've sat with, and sometimes Indigenous elders in different parts of the world. And I've always been wishing that their wisdom was spread. And it's the same for you. It's the same for our friend Adam from Network School. It's the same for anyone of any age, where I wish that their wisdom and their natural genius, the essence of who they are, is shared. So
that's a lovely idea.
I think it's like whatever comes into these conversations is perfect. And the depth that you and I have reached already in a very short moment in time is exactly what people are giving me great feedback about. They're saying that they want to just keep listening, and then they'll say, oh, I loved hearing about Chris's perspective on hiking and statistics. And then so anyway, do you want to talk about favourite food at the moment? Tell me about
food is really easy. I'm omnivorous. There are very few things I do not like. Now, there are things I really do like. I mean, but I like a very varied diet. Like I told you, I just got back from India. I love Indian food, right? Particularly South Indian. I'm not so much into the ghee and heavy stuff, but South Indian, and I'm not typically a vegetarian, right? And South is far more vegetarian. So how do you deal with this? Okay. when I was in India this time, I went to one of my favorite places to go is a place called Maheshwar on the Narmanda River. Okay,
Yes.
and so there's a beautiful old fort that belongs to the Holkar family, who were originally the rulers in that area. And Narmanda is a sacred river, and there's a beautiful ghats there below the fort. And while I'm there this time, there's an Irish couple there, which I can remember their name. Okay, she is like the Julia Child of Ireland. Apparently, she's there. So she picked a couple of the desserts that we had with the meals, and she made a beautiful orange sort of flan kind of thing. Okay,
How did that come to be? Did she end up in the kitchen?
well, because she somehow they have a natural farm in Ireland, and they have a cooking school there. They're hot stuff in Ireland, and then so it's like, oh, okay, so this is great. I mean, so anything like that happens, absolutely fabulous. I am not the only thing I'm not really keen on things like refried beans and baked beans and stuff like that. I like lentils. I like maybe some other kind of beans. I really love, of course, French food. I love the sophistication of that. I love cheese. I could live on cheese. Not American cheese. There's hardly a decent cheese in the whole of America. I don't know about Australia. There are a couple of decent cheeses here. And
that reminds me, Chris, of your origin being from the British Isles and then coming across to California. So I guess living on a couple of different continents in your life, you would have the best of all, and loving the food from the Indian continent, that you would have a wide-ranging palate.
My beautiful Kate, who I'll take you in to meet her shortly, because I don't know if you want to meet her in the podcast or off the podcast. We have you to just tell me whichever is best for you. So we'll do that. But the one
depends on Kate, really.
Well,
does she want to be on the podcast? Or not? I would love to meet Kate.
Well, you can X her off if she doesn't want to be on there. But basically, I would say this partly in jest. She only had one shortcoming in life, and that is she's not really a foodie. Okay, so I'm a lot more into the food. Now, actually, she's quite a good cook. She can make some really wonderful meals, especially casseroles and things like that, which are really wonderful in winter, okay? And I have taken her to a couple of fancy restaurants, which she's really liked. But she would sort of just eat whatever was there, and it's not important to her, right? For me, I like to go for something that is well presented and, on just good service, something like that. That's big for me, right?
Chris, what are the most amazing dishes that you might have had?
The best dish I ever had in my whole life was a navarin of lamb.
What's a navarin of lamb?
It's like you can look it up on Google. It's a wonderful, rich lamb sort of stew dish. Okay.
Yeah.
And I had it at the vineyard that that belongs to the Rothschilds, Chateau Mouton Rothschild. Okay, that's what they served for lunch when I went there, and I had it with a fantastic bottle. I forget what it was, Mouton or the other one. Anyway, fantastic lunch with this navarin served, and extraordinary. Okay, and the other thing I had, another place in France, I went where we had. Do you have black currants in Australia?
Yes.
Well, they don't have them in the USA.
Oh.
They England and Australia. I love black currants. So one meal in France, I remember we had a dish that was just stewed black currants with cream. That's heaven.
You must have quinces there, Chris.
Quinces are too mild for me.
I'll tell you this. I had, talking about simple dishes, I had stewed quinces stewed in rose water with Greek yogurt on top that had some sugar put through it. And it was absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah. So, I mean, see.
Simplicity of food.
How come you didn't invite me when you were doing that?
Well, I'll tell you another one. Sorry, Chris. Sorry I didn't invite you. I'll tell you another one, actually, that just came to mind. There's a beautiful place called Bistro Livi, one of the most wonderful paradises in the world. and they had to create a new award for a regional venue because these guys were doing such great food, and they do it with local ingredients. And I had a deconstructed cream caramel, and it was local cream honey, and I had to ask the chef about what was in the honey, and it was balsamic vinegar.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
that got,
just looked beautiful. It was basically, it just looked like somebody had got a spoon into the cream, slopped it on the plate, and then drizzled it with this local honey that had the balsamic vinegar through it. And it was absolutely, it looked beautiful. It tasted delicious. It was.
yeah. So there we go. So maybe we'll have a gastronomic um, meeting at some point in
Meet
the future.
up. I just wanted to say a huge thank you. To be reunited is such a treat.
Yes, it was absolutely fabulous. I really enjoyed our session, and I hope we have another one.
Thanks for listening to the Natural Genius podcast. Please share this with anyone who came to mind and visit us at naturalgenius.com.au. Thanks so much.